The moment has arrived. This is the part they never warn you about. We're now in the first hours of Mercury retrograde, and you have no idea what it has already done to you. The moment Mercury slipped into retrograde yesterday, your body entered a state it rarely experiences. And the first few hours after that shift, those are the hours that hit the hardest, because the truth is, your body reacts long before your mind catches up. And right now, it's preparing for something you're absolutely going to feel, whether you're ready for it or not. Something unusual happens the day after Mercury goes direct. You suddenly notice your posture in a way you never do. You sit down and instantly feel yourself slouching, like your spine has been collapsing for weeks without your permission. You lie down to relax and realize your body is twisted in some bizarre angle. One shoulder jammed up, your neck tilted, your hips uneven, and for the first time, it actually bothers you. It's like the retrograde pulled a spotlight onto every small way you've been mistreating your own body. People are catching themselves correcting the way they sit, adjusting how they stand, fixing the way their head leans too far forward. Even resting feels strange now. Suddenly you're aware of how you've been sinking into bad positions that you used to tolerate without thinking. Your awareness isn't subtle, it's intrusive. You shift in your chair and instantly feel where you're collapsing into your ribcage. You stretch your legs out and realize you've been holding tension in your calves for no reason. You lie on your side and feel your spine complaining about the way it's been bent all night. None of this felt wrong before, but today, everything feels noticeable. This isn't spiritual symbolism. This is your autopilot shutting down and your body finally getting a voice. Because this is the moment you stop living above the shoulders and start inhabiting the full physical shape you've been dragging through your days. There's something happening in the body right now that most people would never connect to Mercury retrograde, and it's something I call micro-karma. Mercury rules the small things, the details, the micro-signals, the moment-to-moment exchanges that don't look important until they finally collect interest. And right after retrograde begins, the body starts cashing those receipts in. This is when you notice the subtle stuff, a sudden stomach flip after a conversation that felt harmless, a random cough when you hesitate to say what you mean, or even a sneeze that hits right after you avoid a truth you didn't want to face. None of these are dramatic, but they are signals, tiny energetic check-ins that the body uses to show you what hasn't been fully processed. Your body remembers every moment your mind tries to skip, and this retrograde made that memory sharper. Instead of letting mental noise override intuition, the body is stepping forward and giving its own commentary. Post-retrograde, these little energetic debts don't show up in your thoughts, they show up in your physical reactions. It's like your body is finally reading back the fine print you've ignored all year, one sensation at a time. And what it reveals next sets the stage for a shift most people never see coming. Here's one of the strangest post-retrograde effects that catches people completely off guard. Some will look in the mirror and swear they appear lighter, fresher, almost younger than they did a few days ago. Their skin looks smoother, the tension in their face disappears. Their eyes look clearer, and it doesn't feel spiritual or symbolic. It feels physical. Mercury governs the micro-reactions you don't even notice. Those quick bursts of overthinking, the constant background calculations, the tiny muscular contractions that happen when you're stressed without realizing it. During retrograde, the system gets overloaded. It holds tight, it braces, It keeps firing signals it normally doesn't have to manage all at once. But when the retrograde settles in and that overload finally drops, the system exhales. And when it does, the whole body shifts. Muscles unclench in places you didn't even know were holding tension. The jaw softens. The forehead relaxes. The eyes lose that tiny micro squint that comes from always anticipating the next thing to worry about. The face reorganizes itself into something calmer. Relaxation isn't passive. It's the body's way of returning you to who you really are. Less tension means more radiance. Less internal chaos means a clearer presence. This is why some people wake up after a retrograde begins and feel like their face looks different, their body feels lighter, their energy feels more attractive. For some, it's more than youthfulness. It's the return of presence itself. And presence, when it comes back online, changes everything you notice next. One of the strangest aftershocks of a Mercury retrograde is the way it interferes with expression, not in the cliché communication issues sense, but in a much more intimate, internal way. You may suddenly notice that the sentences you want to say don't quite match the feeling you're trying to express. The words are there, floating somewhere in your mind, but they just don't land correctly when you try to bring them out. It's as if the emotional meaning is too big for the vocabulary you normally use, so everything comes out slightly distorted or incomplete. This happens because Mercury doesn't just rule communication externally, it rules the way you translate inner states into language. And when Mercury goes retrograde, that translation process becomes heavier, more emotional, more layered. You're not losing your ability to speak. You're being asked to feel before you articulate. Emotion is not clean, logical, or precise, and the retrograde temporarily strips away the convenient shortcuts that let you describe your feelings without actually experiencing them. This is why conversations feel slower, why you replay what you said in your mind, why you catch yourself starting a sentence and then stopping halfway because it doesn't feel accurate anymore. You're not confused, you're becoming more sensitive to the mismatch between what you feel and what you say. When the heart gets louder, the words get quieter. And during retrograde, the heart gets very loud. You may also notice that the more you try to explain yourself, the more tangled it becomes. Emotional truth doesn't compress neatly into sound bites, and so the body hesitates, pauses, second guesses. Even simple conversations can feel strangely heavy, as if everything you say carries more weight than you intended. But the good news is, this isn't permanent. When the retrograde stabilizes, the emotional fog begins to clear and language becomes fluid again. The strange silence lifts, the words return, the mind and the heart start speaking the same language again, and expression becomes effortless instead of forced. What feels like a blockage right now is actually a recalibration, your emotional world expanding faster than your words can keep up. And once the two sync again, the clarity is impossible to ignore. One of the biggest signs that Mercury retrograde is still echoing through your system is the way your sleep has shifted. People describe it as shallow, hollow, fake, or strangely disconnected, like you slept, but you didn't actually rest inside that sleep. And that's because a part of you is still moving through unfinished internal terrain, processing things you didn't consciously register over the last few weeks. When sleep becomes scattered, or you drift in and out without fully dropping into deep rest, it's usually because the subconscious is still in motion. You're technically sleeping, but the deeper layers of your mind are still traveling. The body sleeps, but the unfinished story keeps walking. That's why you wake up tired even if you technically slept for hours. Your spirit has been moving, working, closing loops you didn't even know were open. The retrograde forces the deeper mind to reorganize itself, and that reorganization doesn't stop just because the planet moved into a new phase. Dreamless nights, unexpectedly light sleep, or waking up at random times, especially around 3 a.m., are signs that your inner world is still sorting through a backlog of emotional and sensory information that your conscious mind hasn't processed yet. It's not insomnia, it's your inner system trying to protect you from seeing something too soon. This is also why some people feel like they didn't dream at all. The subconscious sometimes pulls the curtain closed when the content is too raw or too unformed. Other people might feel like they're floating in their sleep, never fully sinking into their body. That sensation is the subconscious keeping you slightly elevated so it can continue working without interruption. Even though Mercury is direct now, your inner dialogue hasn't fully caught up. The conscious mind accepts the shift quickly, but the subconscious moves on its own timeline. It needs a moment to gather the pieces, rewrite the internal narrative, and decide what you're ready to see next. And the way it communicates that secret process is through your sleep. One of the most common physical sensations people have been reporting since Mercury went retrograde is a sudden, sharp awareness of sound, especially ear ringing. Not the kind that comes from loud music or daily noise, but a more subtle, internal tone that seems to appear out of nowhere and vanish just as quickly. It's the type of ringing that makes you pause for a second because it feels like it comes from inside the head, not the environment. Now, this doesn't mean the retrograde caused it, but for people who are naturally more sensitive to energetic shifts, the timing might not be a coincidence. Mercury rules the microsignals in your nervous system, the tiny electrical impulses that allow you to interpret detail, information, and sensory data. When Mercury flips direction, those microsignals can feel amplified or irregular. The body may interpret this as a high-frequency tone, a momentary shift in pressure, or that sudden ringing that fades almost as soon as it appears. This is especially common for people who tend to feel the environment more than they analyze it. The ringing acts almost like a subtle alert that something has shifted in the background of your perception. For some, the ringing comes with a brief moment of clarity, where thoughts sharpen or instincts flare up. For others, it feels like a brief static that interrupts their focus. Either way, it's the nervous system picking up on cues before the conscious mind has a chance to interpret them. You're not imagining it, you're noticing a layer of perception that usually runs quietly in the background. And while it may feel strange or even distracting, it usually settles once the body adjusts to the new pace Mercury brings. The ringing tones become less frequent, the sensitivity levels off, and your senses return to their regular rhythm. But the fact that you felt it at all means your body is responding to something subtle, something most people walk right past without ever noticing. Another physical effect that's been unusually common after this retrograde began is the sensation of head pressure, but not the kind that comes with migraines or stress headaches. This is different. It's more like a heavy presence sitting behind your forehead, a tightness around the temples, or a slow, deliberate pressure behind the eyes that makes you blink harder than usual. It's not painful enough to stop your day, but it's noticeable enough that you can't ignore it. This pressure appears because your brain is working overtime, not in the usual sense of stress or overthinking, but in a much deeper, structural way. Mercury governs the pathways your mind uses to make sense of information. The patterns you identify, the assumptions you live by, the connections you draw without realizing it. When Mercury shifts into retrograde, the brain is forced to pause those automatic processes and reevaluate them. Think of it as mental recalibration, except we're not using any tech analogy here. This is the brain doing what it naturally does when pushed into unfamiliar territory. During retrograde, your mind collects observations, unfinished thoughts, unresolved reactions, and unexpressed truths. But the actual processing of that material often doesn't happen until the retrograde has already begun. That's why people feel this pressure right after Mercury turns. Your brain is reorganizing itself in the background, running quiet simulations of new outcomes, questioning old assumptions, and integrating experiences you haven't fully digested. Pressure isn't confusion, it's clarity assembling itself. And that's exactly what this sensation represents. The subtle tension behind your eyes or across your forehead is your perception shifting its shape. You're not imagining it. You're not exaggerating. You're in the middle of cognitive restructuring, and the body expresses that through physical density before it expresses it through insight. Some people feel the pressure rise whenever they think about certain situations. Others notice it randomly in calm moments, as if the brain decides it's time to reorganize something you weren't even consciously considering. The eyes might feel more sensitive to light, or focusing might feel strangely effortful, not because you're tired, but because your awareness is expanding into new territory. There's also a reason this pressure is so specifically located. The forehead and the area behind the eyes are connected to your ability to understand, predict, and interpret patterns. When that system updates itself, the muscles, tissues, and nerves in that region respond. It's very similar to how emotional clarity often feels like a weight lifting, except here, the clarity isn't here yet. It's building. And the building process comes with tension. Once Mercury's effects stabilize in your body, this head pressure usually dissolves gradually. And when it does, many people describe a sudden sense of mental openness, like someone turned a light on inside their mind. Decisions feel easier. Thoughts become cleaner. Overthinking loses its grip. The tension was simply the preparation, and the clarity that follows is what makes it worth noticing in the first place. The real impact happens after Mercury goes retrograde, when life quietly enters what feels like a cosmic audit. Every pattern, every routine, every habit you've been running on autopilot suddenly becomes visible in a way you can't ignore. It's not emotional, it's not dramatic, and it's not chaotic. It's precise, surgical. Like someone turned on a fluorescent light in a room you thought was clean and revealed every speck of dust you've been walking past. This audit isn't about punishment. It's not even about correction. It's about alignment. Mercury rules details, the micro-decisions, the subtle behaviors, the small energetic exchanges that make up the architecture of your daily life. And during retrograde, it observes them, not loudly, but meticulously. When the retrograde begins, it's like Mercury quietly grabs a clipboard and says, "All right, let's see what's actually working here, and what's just pretending to work." You'll start to notice tiny inconsistencies that were always there, but never bothered you until now. That habit you rely on every morning, but suddenly feels exhausting. That routine you used to tolerate, but now feels like sandpaper. That person whose conversation once felt effortless, but now drains you in 5 minutes. These aren't random annoyances. They're indicators that something in your internal system is mismatched with the direction life is pulling you toward. Alignment doesn't arrive gracefully, it arrives by eliminating what no longer fits. That's the essence of Mercury's audit. You'll see parts of your life that once looked stable begin to loosen. Systems you depended on reveal flaws. Routines that looked efficient now feel clunky. Even conversations take on a different tone. The universe isn't trying to break anything. It's simply removing the illusion that those things were holding you up. What makes this phase so profound is how quiet it is. This isn't a tower moment or catastrophic collapse. It's a gentle but firm recalibration. Plans fall through not because something went wrong, but because they weren't right to begin with. People pull back because their role in your life is shifting. Habits stop working because you've outgrown the logic that created them. You're not being blocked, you're being redirected. This is the part of the post-retrograde phase where the universe reorganizes your internal blueprint. Everything that's misaligned gets highlighted. Everything that's no longer sustainable gets loosened. Everything that's still true gets strengthened. And the things that fall away during this time, they were the very things that would have kept you stuck if they stayed. The beauty of this audit is that it doesn't ask for your permission. It doesn't need your awareness. It just needs your willingness to stop resisting the truth that's becoming clearer with each passing hour. This is where people often mistake progress for regression. The clarity you gain after a retrograde begins doesn't feel like inspiration or empowerment at first. It feels like something's been taken away. It feels like loss, like confusion, like a step backward into unfamiliar territory you didn't plan for. And the reason is simple. Realignment begins by dismantling the version of you that was built on compromise. When Mercury reveals what isn't aligned, it doesn't immediately replace it with something better. It creates space first. And space, emotional, physical, mental space, can feel unsettling. You might suddenly feel disconnected from things that once kept you stable. You might feel unmotivated, uninspired, or detached from goals that used to excite you. You might even feel disappointed for reasons you can't explain. This isn't failure, it's the cost of clarity. Losing interest isn't losing progress, it's losing the version of you that no longer fits the future. Your nervous system is recalibrating. Your mind is rearranging priorities. Your emotions are catching up to truths you ignored. These transitions are rarely smooth. They're rarely pleasant, but they're necessary. You can't carry forward patterns that were formed in a version of your life you've already outgrown. Mercury removes those patterns not gently, but effectively. A lot of people confuse this discomfort with a sign that they're slipping backward. They think that because things feel heavier, they must be doing something wrong. But that heaviness is actually the pressure of realignment. Imagine a bone being set back into place. The moment it shifts is painful, but the pain is the first proof that healing is happening. This is the same kind of pain. Not emotional pain, not heartbreak, but an internal friction created when your old identity loses its grip and the new one hasn't fully formed yet. You're in the in-between, and the in-between always feels awkward. It always feels unfamiliar. You're shedding perceptual habits you didn't realize were weighing you down. And without those habits, you momentarily feel lighter and lost at the same time. Mercury doesn't just help you move forward, it removes the things blocking your path. That removal can feel like emptiness. It can feel like nothing is working. It can feel like life took something from you. But look closer. Nothing you truly needed is being taken. Only the attachments that kept you stagnant are dissolving. The discomfort you feel right now is the sensation of your life being cleared for its next chapter. It's the pressure right before the real shift. It's the moment before alignment clicks into place. And while it may not feel good yet, it will. The moment you stop trying to revive what was never meant to survive this phase. What's happening in your life right now might look chaotic on the surface, but underneath that chaos is one of the most precise spiritual recalibrations you'll experience this year. Mercury retrograde didn't just nudge a few routines or disrupt a few plans. It reached into the structure of your choices, your reactions, your assumptions, and quietly rearranged the foundation you've been standing on. The tension, the misunderstandings, the physical sensitivity, the emotional friction, none of it is random and none of it is wasted. It's preparation disguised as inconvenience. This is the moment where life shows you which parts of your identity were built on autopilot and which parts are ready to evolve. The retrograde highlighted every weak spot, not to overwhelm you, but to prevent you from walking into 2025 with blind spots that would have cost you far more later. It's the universe saying, fix the cracks now because the structure you're moving into can't hold them. And here's the part most people overlook. The wisdom you're getting from this discomfort is priceless, and it's going to shape the most important decisions you make in the coming months. This isn't the kind of wisdom that comes from reading books or listening to advice. It comes from internal friction, from noticing what no longer aligns, from being forced to pay attention to the details you used to ignore. You don't grow from ease. You grow from the places where comfort stopped covering the truth. This retrograde didn't confuse you. It sharpened you. It stripped away illusions and revealed where you've been settling, tolerating, or avoiding what needed your attention. It brought hidden dynamics to the surface. It exposed weak agreements. It showed you where your energy leaks. It pointed directly at the habits and patterns that are unsustainable for the next chapter of your life. The real reward comes after you stop fighting the discomfort and start listening to what it's trying to teach you. Suddenly, the confusion gives way to clarity. The emotional heaviness dissolves into insight. You start seeing people's intentions more clearly. You notice which paths drain you and which ones energize you. You recognize the difference between what your ego wants and what your intuition has been trying to tell you for months. This is the reward phase, not loud, not dramatic, but incredibly powerful. It shows up in the form of cleaner boundaries, stronger instincts, and a renewed trust in your own judgment. One of the most surprising and most overlooked consequences of Mercury retrograde is the shift in how other people perceive you. When the fog lifts, people aren't just seeing things more clearly, they're seeing you more clearly. The version of you that others carried in their minds, the outdated image, the old stories, the assumptions formed months or even years ago, those impressions are being rewritten right now. You've been recoded in the minds of others. This happens because your internal alignment changed, and the moment your inner state shifts, the energetic imprint you project into the world shifts with it. People pick up on that without even realizing. They interpret your presence differently. They respond to your tone differently. They make space for you in ways they didn't before. And sometimes, they pull away, not because you did something wrong, but because the version of you they once interacted with no longer exists. This is why you might notice strange changes in your social field. Someone who overlooked you suddenly paying attention. Someone who dismissed you now taking you seriously. Someone from your past resurfacing with a softened energy. Or someone who used to feel close, now feeling somewhat distant. These patterns aren't random, they're recalibrations. Your identity, energetically, socially, emotionally, has been updated. You're stepping into a phase where people will start recognizing the traits in you that they were blind to before. If you're still watching, I'd like to thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed the content, and want to see more, please consider clicking the subscribe button. Your support is very appreciated. Feel free to share your experiences or thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, take care and subscribe for more insightful content.